Very great. Let me move to another subject, Elon. Education. I mean, you have your own philosophy about education. With AI, education might change dramatically. Can you tell us briefly about your philosophy of education? And number two, do we need 12 years of schooling and 4 years of university?
Well, with respect to education, I think in general, some things that we could do to make it more compelling would be to explain to children why we are teaching a particular subject. The human mind has evolved to really forget anything that it deems unimportant. So, in fact, human memory is really quite bad relative to, say, the memory of your phone. Your phone can remember the entire contents of an encyclopedia down to the last letter and pixel. But human memory is terrible by comparison. So the mind is constantly trying to forget things, actually. If you explain the why a subject is being taught, that will then establish relevance, and it's much more likely to result in motivation for kids. And then also, if you teach knowledge, especially in the sciences, as solutions to a problem, it's much more effective. So, like, let's say you're trying to understand an internal combustion engine. Well, it's actually better to sort of take that apart and then say, okay, well, what tools do we need to use to take it apart? We need a wrench and screwdriver and various other things to take it apart. Well, then you understand that the reason for the tools. And so, like for mathematics are like tools in physics and engineering. But if you teach to the problem and then you understand, then you establish the relevance of the tools, then it's actually much easier to remember mathematics and physics because they help explain how the world works, as opposed to teaching them without explaining why and simply teaching them. It's like instead of teaching to the problem, currently people teach the tool. It would be like having a course on screwdrivers or a course on wrenches, but not understanding why you have a course you're learning about screwdrivers and wrenches. I think this is really quite a fundamental principle that should be applied in education. And I think sometimes we do teach classes that children do not find useful, and where the answer to the why is actually not going to be a very good answer. Most people, I think, do not find advanced mathematics useful and are unlikely to find it useful in their life. Or the elements that they do find useful could be taught very quickly as general principles. I also think that critical thinking is something that should be taught to children at a relatively young age, as effectively like a mental firewall, to really think about when somebody tells you something, is it cogent? Is it true? Or what is the probability that it is true? And so that you can be taught to reject things that are untrue or more likely to be untrue, and favor things that are more likely to be true. Critical thinking, I think, is very helpful for people to learn.
So is it 12 years of schooling you are with, or without 12 years?
12 years is a long time, I suppose. But I mean, humans just do take a long time to mature. So there's emotional maturity, physical maturity, and mental maturity that is happening simultaneously with the education. I mean, I suppose it could be done in 10 years. Perhaps it does not need 12. But then is someone mature at age 16? They're more likely to be mature at age 18. So I guess 12 years is probably not bad. We probably don't need an additional 4 or 5 or 6 years in college or university. That seems probably excessive. I think we would probably shave a few years off and be fine.
Right. Okay. Kids will love it, by the way.
Yeah.
But social media. But we spend so many hours on social media. I mean, the average sometime in certain country, 3-4 hours on social media. And sometimes when we go to our kids, we see them spending also long hours. Part of it's knowledge. Do you have any rule for your kids? I mean, how much they can spend in social media?
I've generally not tried to restrict social media for my kids, although that might have been a mistake. Depending on which kid it is, they've really been programmed by Reddit and YouTube, I'd say, more than anything else, Reddit and YouTube. I think probably I would limit social media a bit more than I have in the past, and just let's take note of what they're watching, because I think at this point they're being like programmed by some social media algorithm, which you may or may not agree with. So I think probably one needs to supervise children's use of social media, and be wary of them getting programmed by some algorithm written in the Silicon Valley, which may or may not be what you want.
Elon, you've been working very hard. I mean, since 6 years ago we met, you look much younger, by the way, than 6 years ago.
Thanks. You look great too.
But I know that you've been working for almost 20 hours a day. You sleep in the sofa in the office, maybe Twitter office, Tesla office. You told me once I was with you at Tesla's office. How do you balance your life? I mean, with this stress, with so many different, you're in so many different company parallel. How do you balance it?
Well, I should point out that a 20-hour workday is relatively unusual and rather painful. But I do sleep 6 hours a night. So, and if I sleep less than 6 hours a night, I find that I might be awake longer, but I get less done. So, but I do work a ridiculous amount, I think, relative to most people, in that it's pretty much 7 days a week, and mostly from when I wake up to when I go to sleep. I'm not suggesting this is good for everyone, and I think, frankly, I would like to work a bit less than that. So, I think if I look at, say, Tesla went through some very difficult times where it was on the ragged edge of survival, and really, if I didn't give it everything I got, I think the company could have easily gone bankrupt. It was really on the verge of bankruptcy for quite a while. I don't mean to suggest complacency at this point, but it does require much less work to operate Tesla now versus, say, in the 2017 to 2019 timeframe. And it's not at mortal risk of survival. It's achieved economies of scale that make it, not on the ragged edge of survival. And then SpaceX also has a strong team and is able to make a lot of progress, even if I spend less time there. It does help if I spend time there, but it keeps making progress even if I don't. Twitter is still somewhat of a startup in reverse, and so there's a lot of work required here to get Twitter to a sort of a stable position, and like I said, to really build the engine of engineering, of software engineering at Twitter, and have it really have a great product roadmap and the people in place to implement that product roadmap. And so it is not my intention to work like crazy. I think I would be comfortable with a mere 80-hour work week would be fine.
All right.
And that is what I would aspire to.
Thank you. We are running out of time. I have one last question I have to ask you.
Sure.
3 UFO been shot, one over Alaska, Lake Huron, and Canada. Alien, no alien.
I don't think it's aliens, no.
Okay.
I mean, I do find the whole question of aliens a very interesting one. You know, what is typically called the Fermi paradox, which is that if the universe is really as old as science seems to think it is, and where are the aliens? Have we really been around for 13.8 billion years? If so, shouldn't there be aliens all over the place? The crazy thing is I've seen no evidence of alien technology or any alien life whatsoever. And I think I'd know. You know, SpaceX, we do a lot. I mean, I think I know. I don't think there's anyone who knows more about space, you know, than me, or at least the space technology. But I think it's actually a troubling thing if there are no aliens as well, which is that what that actually could mean then is that sort of civilization and consciousness is like a tiny candle in a vast darkness, and a very vulnerable tiny candle that could easily get blown out. And I think we should therefore take great care with what may very well be this tiny candle in a vast darkness, and make sure that it does not go out, and that we extend the light of consciousness beyond Earth, and do everything we can to ensure that the light of consciousness does not go out.
Elon, we run out of time. Thank you very much, and hopefully to see you next year with us here in the Emirates with your family.
Sounds good. And thanks so much. Thanks again for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see you. Bye-bye. Bye-bye. Thank you.